Good morning, Carolyn. Can you hear us?
Yes, good morning, everybody.
Perfect. So we'll quickly go around the table. Everybody can introduce themselves. And I don't know, Carolyn, if you can see it right or if it's mirrored.
It's fine. I can read backwards. It's fine.
Okay. But Caroline is an educator from the Boston Judaic Educator. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning.
From the Boston area. And she, our paths had crossed when I took a class that she was teaching through Hebrew College in Boston. I took it online. It was for parents of children with disabilities, and it was parenting through the lens through a Jewish lens, right, Carolyn? That was the name. Parenting children with disabilities through Jewish lens, and it was so powerful, and it made such a huge impact on me. And some of the people here around the table know me, and I've shared these insights or that feeling that I got from that event. So when we started working on this, I reached out to Carolyn, and gracefully she tweaked this the whole series into today's session. And you'll see I have the material for everyone. So if you could just make sure you all have name tags, and quickly we'll just go and introduce yourself just by name so she can connect face to a name. There you go.
Hi, I'm Susan Hyman.
Stacy Burchard.
Hi, I'm Sheva Faber.
I'm Shelley Kresshoff.
I'm Joel Shemaskin.
I'm Marge Rosen.
Martha Chazanoff.
And I have to tell you, from my previous experience working with the owl, it actually makes a better impact if you look at the owl, because the owl is looking at you. This is the owl, the camera.
Wow.
And then this way Carolyn can see what it's like fun, because Carolyn is over here, right? So you'll have to kind of take a glimpse. But that's the only challenge. But if you want to speak to the person that you are speaking to, this is the way. Okay?
I've never seen one of those before.
Oh, the owl?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm also adding captioning. I don't know if you can see it on the screen, just to be on the safe side. Do we have it? Yes. Yep. Because we are talking about inclusion, and this is Jewish disability.
Can you make it larger?
Sorry?
Captioning,
I can, and not on the expense of the screen, so I'll have to keep the screen. I'll try once we start. Okay, so this is Jewish Disability, Accessibility and Inclusion Month, JADEM, and this is one of two sessions that we're having supporting adult education. And Carolyn?
I just want to, do you want to change seats so you're closer to the screen?
Yeah,
let's do that. Okay,
great, perfect, thank you, Martha.
Sure.
Okay, Carolyn, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Wait for well, I can do this. I also want to share. Can you hear me get clearly?
Did we get what? Sorry?
Can you hear me?
If we can hear you.
No.
She's cutting in and out.
You're cutting in and out. First of all, just hand these over.
Try it again. I'm coming in and out now.
A little bit better.
I don't
It's a
know.
little bit.
I'm going to do my best.
How about you say a complete sentence and we'll start with that.
A complete sentence. Okay, we didn't try the technical aspect. Okay, I'm on loud and I'm on the best that I'm on my best I can. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Well, Sharon and I did have this experience together a few years ago. So I thank her for inviting me today. We share that both of us are moms of sons with disabilities. Sharon has Yoav that I think you all know. And I have a son, Shalom. He's 41 years old with Down syndrome. And so we have some shared experiences. But we chose today to focus on disability, but to look at it through the through the entire life cycle. So, we could start with what our experiences were with young children, but as we get older, there are increasingly challenges that we all face. And I already heard from Sharon that you're quite a special community already. You're very inclusive, you're very involved in social action. But I think one of our goals today is to look at certain Jewish texts, see if they resonate with us. Some may resonate with you, some not. I hope this is a discussion. But how can we become even more sensitive to the needs of people with disabilities, people with physical challenges, emotional challenges? I think that's something the whole community is facing. So how do we become an even more sensitive, inclusive community? So how am I doing, Sharon? Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Yes.
Okay, great.
In your
We're going to start. The reason we're starting and name this is the world could not exist without you. Is when I shared with parents a series of texts about what resonated most. They really felt like this text from Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, who was a Hasidic master, really resonated. The day you were born is the day God decided that the world could not exist without you. Hayom bo noladata, hayom ba hiflid hakadosh baruch hu ha'olam eino yachol litkayem biladecha. And there's a second text, and we'll just look at these two texts, and let's think how these implications. Second text on text 2, in the bottom of the page, pockets. Rabbi Simcha Bun and Barnhard of Prayusha. And both of these gentlemen are contemporaries. They lived in the 1700s. Rabbi Nachman, 1772 to 1810. He used to say, everyone must have two pockets with a note in each pocket so that he or she can reach into the one or the other, depending on the need. When feeling lowly and depressed, discouraged, or disconsolate, one should reach into the right pocket and there find the words, for my sake, the world was created. But when feeling high and mighty, one should reach into the left pocket and find the words, I am but dust and ashes. So how do we relate? I assume, and I hope you're a talkative group. I'd love to hear some comments.
I found the first text incredibly moving on a very emotional level.
Okay. Why is that one?
There's a beauty in the recognition of the humanity of each of us.
Wonderful. Anyone else?
Yeah, I also found the first text very moving, and I think it can pertain to anybody. It's just saying we are all individuals. And in this, no individual is better than the other. It's we're all here. I really like that.
I feel like reflecting on the second text, the word that comes to mind for me is gratitude. That this is the life that we're in, and through our own choices, there may be times when we are less worthy of it, but we can be grateful that we have it, that we're existing, that we're experiencing it.
And the second one also reflects on that we're all temporarily able.
What do you mean by, can you clarify what you mean?
Can you, Susan, can you clarify?
Oh, that's a concept that's popular now in the disability community, that, our current status is temporary, that we could, it's tomorrow. We could be deaf tomorrow, we could be blind tomorrow. We can be,
Of course.
different.
Right. Yeah, the second, both of them spoke to me, but the second one, I think is so wise, because I think many times, I'm gonna take this personally, many times
Please do.
when I think I've done it just right, and I'm feeling not high and mighty, but really good about what I've done, and so I go into, if I had two pockets, I'd go into my right pocket. But I'm sure within moments I think to myself, oh, for God's sake, why are you like this? Just, you did something and you did it because you wanted to. People don't have to be gratified. You do things for yourself as well as others. So.
Mhm.
We talk about this a lot in our house. I have a 15-year-old and an 11-year-old, and with the 11-year-old in particular, it can seem like the struggles in life seem to just be all consuming. Like, just, it's a hangnail, but the world has come to an end. And so we talk about, how temporary all of these feelings and experiences are, that the ebbs and flows, like you're in a hard moment, and, there's obviously much more difficult and harder moments than a hangnail. And we talk about how this is ephemeral, like this experience is not going to last, your feelings are not going to last. But then I also try to tuck in every once in a while when, like, hey, we're going to Disneyland, and I don't try to be a bummer, but I do try to have a side conversation to say, really embrace this moment, like enjoy it, because this is the ebbs and flows of life. Right now we're right here, and so just recognize that this is it. This is a wonderful moment to be present and celebrate, and then, and remember that when we get to the inevitable harder times in life, that those too will pass. So we talk about this, obviously this text is new to me, but I think it kind of parallels that experience and conversation.
And for me, it makes me think about, for every parent or person who has a challenge, they in their own way bring some value to their community or family or the world more broadly. So that's really what stood out for me in both of these.
I just want to add one more thing. I love the first text. When I saw it the first time, I literally cried. And I'm a parent of a child with special needs, and this is like a confirmation. This is how it should be. He is a gift, not just for me, but it's God's gift to the world. The past 17 years, 16 years since, I've experienced also, aging parents, friends with developing disabilities as we age, as things happen. My father suffered from Parkinson's disease, and then he passed away from that, and I could see the deterioration. And this statement by Nachman Breslov, Rabbi Nachman Breslov, resonates. This is part of life. This is how it should be. We should do our best to fight deterioration. We should do our best to heal ourselves, but and that's part of what God has given us. But also, there's a place and time, as you said earlier, certain things that are temporary, and we just have to embrace that this is part of that person's contribution to the world as that person is in that particular moment. So I tell Carolyn, this is still a very powerful text.
Yeah. Let's move on, because we have impact on these texts, so.
Yeah, text 3, we're all unique.
Unique. So this text comes from the Mishnah, which the Mishnah is part of the Oral Torah, which was compiled between 200 and 300 CE, as we say, by Yehuda Hanassi. But let's remember, and one of the things when Sharon and I were talking about this is some of these texts will resonate more, some you will like, some you won't like. But what's amazing about our Jewish tradition is that the rabbis spent hundreds of years debating amongst themselves. So we can take that as license for us to also debate amongst ourselves as to what texts resonate best with us or what we like or don't like. So Sharon, can you have someone read the first paragraph for me?
Sure. Therefore, Adam, the first man, was created alone to teach you that with regards to anyone who destroys one soul from the Jewish people, kills one Jew, the verse ascribes him blame as if he destroyed an entire world, as Adam was one person from whom the population of an entire world came forth. And conversely, anyone who sustains one soul from the Jewish people, the verse ascribes him or her credit as they sustained an entire world. The Mishnah cites another reason Adam, the first man, was created alone, and this was done due to the importance of maintaining peace among people, so that one person will not say to another, my father, my progenitor is greater than your father. And it was also so that the heretics who believe in multiple gods will not say there are many authorities in heaven and each created a different person.
Okay. Comments? We should read the second text also. Can someone else read the second text?
Second paragraph.
Yes, please, Susan.
And this serves to tell of the greatness of the Holy One, blessed be he, as when a person stamps several coins with one seal, they are all similar to each other. But the supreme King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be he, stamped all people with the seal of Adam, the first man, as all of them are his offspring, and not one of them is similar to another. Therefore, since all humanity descends from one person, each and every person is obligated to say, the world was created for me, as one person can be the source of all humanity and recognize the significance of his actions.
What do these texts tell us about how Judaism values life?
That we're all equal on all dimensions.
I'm noticing that the first text refers to the Jewish people alone, and the second text to all humanity. And I find that a little troubling. Do the rabbis tend to interpret the first as meaning all people?
It's something that Carolyn and I discussed because of the nature of our temple and the way, the Reformed Judaism has an approach to the world and other people. We didn't want to change the text because this is the original text from the Mishnah, but we do the interpretation and we can interpret it as talking about all people, which is true. We know that one person can be the source of an entire community. So that's a good comment.
I had the same observation, because that first one made me a little uncomfortable, I'll be honest. Yeah, and as somebody who wholeheartedly believes in science and evolution, I look at it from this other lens of there's a interpretive lens to it, but I don't take it literally.
So, of course not.
Yeah, I know. No, but I know people who do. That's where I know plenty of people who do, and I don't understand that either, but.
I'm going to interject some politics into the conversation.
Yes.
So for those of you who are familiar with what's going on in Israel specifically, with the struggle between separation of state and we don't have church, but with rabbinical authority in Israel, they're still connected, unfortunately, and have been for the past 75 years. And the Orthodox Judaism had established their authority as the sole Jewish authority in the land, which is very troubling for many of us liberal Jews. And I wouldn't be surprised if the teaching in those, in their schools, and the teachings that they are pushing for now with the current situation in Israel, the current coalition, the teaching that they're pushing for to be imposed in even secular schools is of having the Jewish people in the center as the source of everything and as a supreme community over others in the world. So it raises a big red flag and concern. I agree.
But in the same way that we can learn from any piece of literature how it applies to our life and the ideas that it makes us think and the responses that we can have to the literature and to each other in discussion about the literature, we can do the same with this. It was on my mind, so I said it. There you
No,
go.
please.
That's the way I operate.
Well,
Yeah, Sharon had me prepared that that could be one of your responses, but if you want to bring, let's put ourselves back, in the year 200 and what tribally we might have felt. But look, I think there is particularism and universalism is a tension in Judaism, and I think we can recognize it. But if we could also focus on this as we can take it as we can use it universally if we talk about God creating one unique person at a time. And I think I would assume that you've heard before, who destroys a soul, destroys a world. You could take Jewish out of it, because I think as, since Sharon brought up the political situation today, by the way, I just was looking at my New York Times, a huge article on how Israel came about. I hope everybody gets a chance to look at it today in the magazine section, a huge thing on Israel. But I think Judaism really appreciates life and finds life holy, and is not a tradition that aspires to kill in the name of its. So I think that's what I would take away from this text, is that Judaism sees the value of life. So even one soul is as if killing a whole world. Let's take Jewish out if that's where we feel more comfortable. I think still this is in terms. So shall we move on? Keep exploring more.
Text 4 on parenting a child with disability.
Um,
Do you want me to read it? Do you want someone else to read
no,
it?
I'm going to read it because I wanted to
It's
share.
your text.
Yeah, I wanted to share a little bit. So my son was born. My son was born with Down syndrome in 1982. I literally learned on the delivery table that he had Down syndrome, and so, but we had a bris, and we were really. At that point, I was the educational director at the synagogue that I'm still a part of, Temple Amona in Lexington, Massachusetts. And the community came together. The sisterhood made the bris for us. I mean, obviously not the Moel, but there were 140 people there. And that affirmation of community, when I'm sure a lot of people didn't know what their response should be. But I think for me, that was a very big modeling of how one can help people come to terms with being a parent of a child with disability. And I think a lot of people probably don't know how to respond, but showing up, and there's actually an article we're going to send you at the end about just showing up, really made a big difference for us. And I just also wanted to say, well, I'll say it at the end. So my husband, who, as usually a parent speaks on behalf of the family, surprised us because he text, you might have heard this text before. It comes from the Hallel, which the praise that the songs of Psalms that we say on the various holidays. So I don't know if these are familiar, but I'm just going to read what he read. I will praise you, for you have answered me and have become my deliverance. The stone that the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone. This is the Lord's doing. It is marvelous in our sight. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us exult and rejoice in it. Why do you think my husband chose this text when my son was only a week old?
Because you are going to learn something, and you're going to learn as your son grows and gets older, and you haven't experienced this before, so it's a process. It will always be a process, and you will always, well, you had 140 people come, so I'm sure through life, people did not turn away, people turned toward you and wanted to be with you and to be with your son. And yeah, so I think that's why he chose it.
It's funny that you should say that, because my husband says that my son has helped write more college applications than anyone else he knows, because he did inspire people and people did learn with us. So thank you for that. What else?
I think there may have been an expectation on his part and on the part of many people that instead of rejoicing, your family would be despairing. And he is saying, no, 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 this is our child, and we are rejoicing in his birth.
Absolutely.
Well, I actually resonate with the line, "The stone that the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone." Like, what, I don't know what the rabbis exactly, who are they thinking of? To me, it does help us. I do relate to my son with it, but like, it's such an interesting verse.
Well, there's strength. There's also strength there. And he teaches all of us how to work together and be strong. And I think he's a great example of that. And you need this cornerstone, you need this basic strength in order to build outward. You have to have something inward in order to build outward. So that to me is what it represents.
Beautiful.
Well, and to me, the second line, the second sentence has, to me, two meanings. It says that you all as a family will have the strength to build upon, but then also to me said that in a foreshadowing way, your husband in choosing it was saying, in a practical way, that your son will be the person around whom you will build your family.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a recognition of the reality that in the future decades, there will be things that you will need to do to make your family work around your son, but it also at the same time says that he will be a source of strength to you as well, as you're getting, more experience as a parent.
Thank you, Joel. That's pretty beautiful. I don't want to cry, but thank you very much. It's interesting. The one thing I didn't appreciate, I don't know, Sharon, if you have anything. I don't know if
We
you,
didn't hear you.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. People gave us the book, Harold Kushner's book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. I did not like that. It was very unhelpful to me. I don't know. I mean, as we're just talking about disability and how parents respond. For me personally, a lot of people say, God doesn't give what you can't handle. I don't find that helpful. I don't know if anybody else has any comments, but I think people mean well. I think one of the things we're talking about today is how one supports the changing season with disability. So, thinking about what are helpful responses, what are helpful ways to come together. So
I just want to add something. A few years ago, 20 years ago, before I had kids, I went to visit relatives who live in a moshav and in Israel. And my cousin's husband is a secular man that has been dabbing into religious learning in an Orthodox setting. And we discussed the text, and he said two things that was mind-blowing to me. One was, when you start reading the Torah, the first sentence is translated into English as, first there was a word and the word was God. So you say something and it exists. And then he referred to the thing that everybody says when there's kind of a magic trick going around, abracadabra. Mm-hmm. If you write abracadabra in Hebrew with Hebrew letters, abracadabra, and I'm not referring to any Harry Potter story, it could read, if you write it with the right letters, Evra ka'adabera. What I am creating is what I am saying, which ties back to magic. So this text, this particular text that Carolyn shared with me, along with the text, like the teachings that I had from my cousin's husband, when we were talking about that, we were climbing up this hill and we were looking at the scenery, and he said those things about God's creation. When my son was born, and he was not diagnosed until he was 2 months old. For the past 2 months, we had a normal life. Like, we didn't know that we're going to be hit by a truck, mental truck, 2 months later when he was diagnosed. Evra ka'adabera really spoke to me. This text, the stone that the builders rejected had became the chief cornerstone. All of that became our reality. We are going to create a reality. What we say, this is what is going to happen. In whatever we can do. We can't pull magic out, but and it has been this experience since. No looking back, no mourning, no feeling as what would have happened if. It doesn't exist. Maybe a split second here or there, but the reality is, from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep, is it's going to be great. We're going to make it great. And we get lemons and we make orange juice out of it. And this is what we have to do.
I don't know what your son's disability is.
That's another conversation. I'll share with
Okay.
you later after the session. It's not a secret.
Thanks.
I don't know if people got to read the Holland text that we sent in advance, but also that.
Did you receive the Holland text by email?
Yes.
Yes. Do you have a copy? I have a few
It's
copies here, and we can make more before we leave, so you can have it. And this text also is a good guide to interacting with people that circumstances have made it difficult for them at a certain point, and like it's a tool. So I'll make sure that you will have a copy of that.
Actually, I wondered if the Holland text reflected on this, because it was the same theme.
Yeah. Well, I met Emily Pearl Kingsley long ago when I went to like my first conference. Her son also had Down syndrome, so I met her, and I was thinking now, maybe it's fair to say that not every parent is going to respond the same way. But looking back on 40 years, I think it's much easier to have a child with a disability now than possibly it was 40 years ago. The world has changed, the schools have changed. My son was the first included child in the public school system here in our community. He was the first one in a regular class with an aide, as opposed to being in a separate classroom. So the world has changed. So, and I think parents are probably much better advocates than they were 40 years ago. But I can't say every parent is going to respond as positively. And I think, you know, that text shows that it is a journey. Someone, the first set of comments were, it is a journey. And I love, you know, that your child, to be fair, he or she does take up a lot of room in the family system. As I guess I'm looking at the other parents and know that all your kids take up room in the family system, but you know, there's a special place. And that means that the siblings have a different relationship as well. I'd love to move on a little bit to this text. Next one, I hope.
Next 5 ages of men.
So this comes from the Ethics of the Fathers, Pirkei Avot. It's also from the Mishnah, might be something that you've seen before or not. But like how Judaism saw the stages of humanity, of man, of woman, whatever. Cheryl, could someone volunteer to read this out loud?
I'd like to read this one. The ages of man. He used to say at 5 years of age, the study of scripture. At 10, the study of Mishnah. At 13, subject to the commandments. At 15, the study of Talmud. At 18, the bridal canopy, God forbid. At 20, for pursuit of livelihood. At 30, the peak of strength. At 40, wisdom. At 50, able to give counsel. At 60, old age. At 70, fullness of years. And at 80, the age of strength. At 90, a bent body. At 100, as good as dead and gone completely out of the world. My goodness, when was this?
Well, it was written probably at a time where people did not survive the age of 60 on a.
Right, and they were getting married at 18.
If they were lucky.
Yeah.
Usually it was 14.
Oh, God.
What are some comments about this? I actually noticed that you get married before you have to go out to work. I thought that was interesting. Being before 20. Do any of these things apply anymore?
Well, in the roughest sort of way. You know, you go to school, you go out on your own. At some point, you're wise.
Not always.
But the decades in the process has changed at least in our life, maybe not in the religious people in Israel or Brooklyn.
I think it's interesting because, and it's true, I think more wisdom, more counsel, ability to comes with experience, comes with age. I mean, you know a lot more at 40, 50, 60 than you did when you thought you knew everything at 18. So I think it all comes in experience and knowledge. I mean, knowledge comes with experience.
But age doesn't denote wisdom, in my opinion. And
I hope you would learn along the way.
I think part of that wisdom though is the knowing when it might be fruitful to share that wisdom, as opposed to when it just might be okay to sit back and recognize somebody's discovery process on their own.
I'm looking at the text and I'm wondering, at 50 able to give counsel, at 60 old age. So I wonder, within 10 years, you become from this wise person to this, okay, let's not listen to her, she's an old lady, what does she know? I really want to hear, so I have a conversation with my mom, she's 80, she's turning 80 soon, and sometimes she says something and then she says, oh, you don't want to hear it from me, I'm too old, right? You don't want to hear it from me. And she has, you know, still a lot of good advice to give. But she's in a place where she's perceived, she perceives everybody else perceiving her old and not important. And I am asking here, being, you know, one of the youngest members of the people around the table, like, is that something that older people feel that they are kind of rejected by younger people because they are getting older.
Oh, that is so definitely true. So looking around, well, I'm gonna be 70 this spring, and I just retired. And Joel, you can probably relate to this, that you wanna go out at the top of your game. And, you know, as a woman in science, it's really hard to stay on the top of your game when younger people are coming up. And what I was gonna share is, I don't know how many of you, a couple of you probably aren't old enough for AARP yet. There's this wonderful newsletter called the Ethel for Women, and they have a whole section on, sign up for it, it's great. They have a whole section on ageism, and you know, I think on the one hand, you know, we're living in a country where we have two really old guys running for president who are trying to defend it's okay to be really old, and at the same time, all of us on the front lines, that not being irrelevant is, you know, a tide that we ride, you know, and it's being graceful about that. And, you know, when I say temporarily able, this is what it refers to, is that at some point, you are not going to be at the top of the game. And being an elder statesman, you know, I don't know how to wind that up, but it's, you know, you don't have the same position you once did, that we're all going to be forgotten.
See, I do have a different view on this. I'm 55, just put my thoughts in perspective. So I had a career shift a couple of years ago, and I now work in mediation. Love my job, and I recognize that this is a job I could not have done 20 years ago. I think the way people perceive me, the clients who come into the office who are in conflict, they perceive me differently because I'm older than most of them, all of them actually so far. And I mean, I feel very fortunate to be in a position where I'm helping to hold a space for people who are in conflict, and I'm not counseling them per se, but I am fostering dialogue and communication between them. But I can see where 10 years from now, I'm not going to want to listen to other people's problems, and I'm going to want to just enjoy reflecting on my life and my, you know, so maybe this is not a bad thing. This is just my perspective right now at 55, and I'm in a different place, but maybe, you know, when I'm in my 60s, I'm going to have the luxury of, like, I no longer have to counsel others. I can just, you know, reflect and counsel and enjoy the time I have left. I don't know, check back with me in a decade and we'll see where we're at.
I'm finding the really interesting part is that out in the world, I experience that sense of irrelevance. In my work, I'm still a practicing psychotherapist, and in my work, I do not feel irrelevant, and in fact, a lot of my patients come from a site called Psychology Today, where they see my picture, and they have chosen me. And I say before I talk to people, by the way, that picture's 15 years old. So don't stop.
You're still beautiful.
But that is what people seek. And the difference between how I experience myself in the office and this doddering old thing that everyone kindly opens a door for, they're really very different, those experiences.
I just want to, it's interesting on the younger spectrum, we've been talking about the older spectrum, but it's very passive at 5 and 10 and 13, and then even going up into getting married, you know, it's things that you're learning from others, but not any active words that say, you know, your opinion matters. So I have kids that are 16 and 13, and they have opinions, and they want, you know, those opinions to matter. So I think there's that struggle on both the upper, you know, end and the lower end of how do you find, you know, push your place in the world.
And there's also so many similarities, as you said, between the younger ages and the older ages. So I have a 10-year-old, and she still needs our help in doing certain things, right? Getting addresses, or she now wants to write a letter to our congressman, or she open a jar, or things like that, or Mom, can you take me wherever I need to go? And you reach an age where you are less able to do those things, either because of a disease or because of your age. And you're in a situation where you're gradually finding yourself depending more on the help of others. And I think a lesson to be learned, kids are used to asking help from others, usually. Usually, it's great that they do things independently, and we support them when they do things independently, but they're used to that. They grow up in an environment that does things for them. And I think that we as a society have to find a way, as a community, find a way of connecting with those who are now at a more advanced age, who are part of our community, want to engage in our community as equals, have those challenges, and not patronize them, not offer help from a patronizing point of view. Making sure that they know that we are available at their level, and make them feel comfortable reaching out and asking for help, rather than feel that they have to keep that need, that situation that they're in, to themselves, so they won't get pitied, they won't get patronized. There's another word I was looking for, but I can't think of it right now.
Well, to tie that in with the younger side of this text here, on the way in today, one of my daughters, we had arranged to meet in the parking lot, and while I was talking to my daughter, I asked our 8-year-old granddaughter if she could get my walker out of the car. Now, I never asked her to do that, but she's now big enough and strong enough to do that. So, and it was somewhat on a practical need, but also somewhat intentional, because then she felt good about helping not just her grandpa, but someone with a disability.
My story is kind of different. I was an art educator for 42 years, and I retired when I was 73. And the first few weeks, I was flummoxed. What, beside painting and going to art galleries and talking about art, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Well, I have a grandson who I have to say, I learn from every day. He's 12 years old. He brings so much to the table that I thank him every day, because I've learned something new and wonderful. So I hate to even call it babysitting. I bring him to Hebrew school, and I meet him on Fridays, and just to chat and have Shabbat together. And but beyond that, I feel that this Temple Sinai, we joined Temple Sinai 53 years ago, and it was we joined when our first daughter was 2, and it was a very, very important part of our lives. And then I would come to Friday services, blah, blah. To move this along, I want to say that at this stage, I'm 83, at this stage of my life, I'm finding there is so much to be involved in the temple, in the Jewish community, and not that I can do great things, I can't, but I want to stand up and say I am here, and I want to be a part of the community.
That is a great thing, though.
Mm-hmm. It is. Thank you.
Thank you.
can I just point out a few things, Sharon, before we move on? In this text, well, I don't, for those of you, there was a big trend maybe a few years ago, all the Hollywood stars were studying Kabbalah. You're not supposed to study Kabbalah until 40. So
Right.
but that was interesting that that's the wisdom you need. I also wanted to say that, the younger kids, I remember that who said that maybe it was a passive at the beginning, but remember, 13 was when they were responsible to be adults, which is certainly not passive. I think they're supposed to be getting ready for understanding what their obligations are. So, maybe we think of it a little bit differently. Whether 13 really seems like the right age anymore or 12 for girls would be a big question. See how these generations are going. And I love that a few of you talk now about grandparenting, because that clearly is, for those of us who are blessed enough to have grandchildren, that does seem to be taking up a lot of the life of those of us, especially COVID made a big change in how families operate. A lot of us have had responsibilities during COVID and continue to have that with grandchildren. And how much we say and do, which this would be a whole other conversation, which we're not going to have, but how involved we are in watching our children bring up their children is a big discussion. What to say, what not to say, how wise to be, and how quiet to be. I think those of you who have hit that stage know what I'm talking about.
I just have to say, I have a sign on one of my cupboards, and it says, "Show up and shut up." I do, because I tend to want to, Allison might tell my daughter, but it's very hard, so every morning I look at that.
Thank you for sharing that. So that was a good summary of what I was trying to say. Okay, so this text may be familiar, text 6, but I think as you talk about your community and what you can do and what you can accomplish, maybe one text, can we read it for us, please? Next person.
Sheva, would you like to read that text, please?
Sure. He, Rabbi Tarfon, would also say, it is not incumbent upon you to finish the task, literally work, but neither are you free to absolve yourself from it.
Well, let's go back. Or is this the text people are familiar with?
Yeah, from the prayer, right? לא עליך המלאכה לגמור ולא אתה בן חורין להיבטל ממנה.
So let's ask the first question, the second question first. Is it work to include people? What does it mean? What kind of work is it to become an inclusive community?
I've heard this in reference to the civil rights movement. Did Martin Luther King say this also? Would you quote it?
Could be Rabbi Abraham Heschel used it.
Marching along with it.
Right.
Yeah, one of us.
Well, we think with all change, and we've got to keep working at it. There's really no end to success. So, what do we think the elements are to create an inclusive community in Haifa, Sinai, and beyond? What do you? Sorry, go ahead.
I was just thinking setting an example by participating ourselves.
Could you repeat what you just said?
It's the question written right here. How might this apply to members of your community regarding inclusion of people with disabilities, aging, LGBTQ, interfaith couples, the other, etc.?
Temple Sinai an inclusive community now? What
Trying. We're trying to be inclusive. And I think we're doing a good job.
Yeah, I think we're inclusive. I mean, I think it also is always a work in progress. I mean, it's always going to be a work in progress, no matter where you are, and in what organization or what community you are, because times change, circumstances change, abilities of people change. So I think it's not stagnant. It's always has to be a moving project.
Are we reaching out to people in their 20s and 30s on the queer spectrum?
I was just,
We can't expect them to come to us.
yes. I was just reading about that this morning. There is a movement for queer, bisexual, all kinds of
Differences.
differences in identifying yourself. And these kids get together. I wish I had written everything down, but these kids get together at a camp for 1 or 2 weeks, and some of them are I'm so old,
LGBTQ.
I'm so old, I don't know how to say it. Anyway, and they are so free, and they say for the first time, I'm free. I have friends that I can talk with, and they've never met each other, many of them, but they create such a community of truth and caring and acceptance of themselves. In fact, they interviewed one boy who's almost 20, and he said he has the strength to come out to his grandmother that he's gay. And until he came to this camp, he would never in his life, and I feel that Temple Sinai has to do an outreach, do something in our bulletin. We've got to think it through, of course. And Marge, you have to help. But I think we've come, that was such a good question. That is such a good question, because there are suicides. The kids that are committing suicide are either bullied or they hate themselves. And it's on the rise, and we have to address it.
And I think I'm gonna say, I think we do, and we are out there in the community, in the LGBTQ community. I work for Trillium. Our focus it's always been LGBTQ, it's been HIV/AIDS, that's who I work for. I will even say, even in that community, there are people who do not know what Trillium is when we are a medical provider and a community provider. But I think, like I'm saying, we can always do more at Temple, but I think we have an open door to this. And also, when I interviewed for my job, and they said, and this was 8 years ago, I said, yes, I'm in the Jewish community, I'm at Temple Sinai. And I remember people I were interviewing with said, you're the temple that marches in the pride parade. Going, yes, we are. But there's always more we can do. There's no question. And I know this has come up with, in discussion with Trillium, what potential we can do as our temple going forward, if there's any programs or processes or grants available.
We're creating a program.
Right.
We're an open door, but
right.
People don't know
That's
to
right.
come in that door.
Right.
Well, so inclusion, you look at it from both ways.
Mm-hmm.
There's people who are able or from the mainstream and whatever, thinking they're being inclusive.
Mhm.
And then there's what people from the, I'm going to call them minoritized groups or whatever, see as inclusive. And I'll give a different example. That at Strong, we follow all these federal guidelines about, ADA and physical access. And they have all these committees of people who build new buildings. There's a woman that I worked with who was an adult with spina bifida, who ambulated in a wheelchair, and they built this gazillion-dollar new building, and she went and complained to the facilities because the apron, the cover, didn't go all the way to the car, so she couldn't get out of her car into her wheelchair out of the snow. And, if they had had one person who had lived experience that they asked, they would have known this. And so that, you know, when we look at inclusion, we have to look at what we sitting around here think versus, you know, the people that, the communities that you're serving with Trillium may not access information or say, oh, you know, I'm waiting for these, you know, these white people to come help me. That, you know, I think that part of these discussions is us sort of getting lived experience and figuring out how to take the work further.
And there's, I agree. There's another thing that I just want to say as a parent advocate and other let's call it minoritized communities, we say not about us without us, meaning you can't discuss and plan a program or a policy or design a building without hearing from those who will be using that, who will be benefiting from that kind of program and have their input. And I think that we as a community, we as Temple Sinai, you know, me sitting here being the chair of the Inclusion and Accessibility Committee and members of the committee are here as well, some of them. I think this is an opportunity not to go out necessarily, but to empower members of our own community who are members of those minorized outer communities, work with them. What is needed? How can we? Is there a need? We want to hear you, starting with listening. And this particular text, Lo alecha amlacha legmor, there is a melacha, there is a work to be done, and it's endless. It's never done. Even when this entire world will transform to be the most inclusive society, civilization on the planet, there will be something else. So
I just wanted to add, you know, with a different example. So my husband works at RIT, and he has had deaf students. There's a big deaf population in Rochester and a school for the deaf. And so he's doing a class where he's making videos, and he doesn't have anyone in his class, but he's captioning all the videos anyway. So I think some of this, you know, I know it's appreciated that Temple Sinai always has an interpreter, whether there's anyone in the audience or not. I mean, it's noticed that you just try, whether, you know, like someone is there to hear you or appreciate it or not, you know, like the getting a start is important.
Well, in the snippets, the announcements of bar and bat mitzvahs, child of, the switch to child of is really very meaningful. I'm sort of curious about how it came about.
it was a long discussion, and we are almost hardly ever use the term bar bat mitzvah. We say bnei mitzvah, to be more inclusive for all forms of gender and identifications. So child of, exactly that. And much is credited to Susan Rizzo. She's our, I'll just explain to Karen, she's our education director. But even before that, she was a member of our Accessibility and Inclusion Committee, and together, she and I sat together, it was her initiative, and reformatted the Bnei Mitzvah guidelines, the parent guidebook. So, changing the language, and it's, as we say, you know, we change the world, we create the world that we want to live in, one word at a time.
Okay, so I just wanted to say, first of all, I noticed, I don't know, maybe you're not doing it yet, but in a lot of synagogues now, it's bar mitzvah. It's not even bar or bat mitzvah. I don't know if it's come to Temple Sinai yet.
The what? Sorry, we doing what?
In some congregations, they're not calling it bar or bat mitzvah, but bar mitzvah.
Oh, we're not there yet. It's bnei mitzvah, and when there's usually the families work with the rabbi on how to identify it when it comes to,
Yeah, I'm just sharing that I just,
yeah, no, it's interesting.
it is interesting. Okay, so I'm watching the time because I want to get to the last few things. And I feel like, I'm sure that text 7, the Shehechianu, is something we're all familiar with. But I think it gives us a chance to talk about how you make your community. I mean, what is a Jewish community? It's a holy community. It's a place that we recognize. I love the first comments where, we talked about earlier, um, the good times and the harder times being temporal. So it's an opportunity for us to just look at this text again. Whose turn is it to read? Who's volunteering to read?
Stacy, would you like to read the Shechianu?
I started from the top, the
Do you want to
class,
read the,
just
Let
Last
them-
couple pages.
at the top?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, the classical rabbis wanted us to see miracles as often as possible, formulating Jewish blessings over seemingly mundane daily activities, such as waking up, going to the bathroom, and eating. They also invented the Shehekianu, a blessing of thankfulness to say on new or unusual occasions. This blessing is traditionally said at the beginning of holidays when a ritual is observed for the first time during the year and when something special happens for the first time. Today, many Jews say this short blessing to help them cherish special moments in their lives.
Blessed are you.
Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who has kept us alive and sustained us and permitted us to reach this moment. Or, blessed be the Eternal One, source of life, who has given us life, helped us to grow, and enabled us to reach this moment.
So, or any of you, anyone of you use the Shechianu in your lives other than for holidays? I'd love to hear. Yes, go
It's
ahead.
my favorite. It's my favorite. Every time we're like getting ready to go someplace, like if we have a trip planned, we get in the car and I force my family to listen to me sing it. Because it's just so good to take a pause and remember, like, yay, this is happening.
something traditional that our family has been doing, my father used to do that at home and we followed suit, is at the beginning of a season, when you try a fruit for the first time in the season, then we would say Shechianu. So I know now you can get watermelons year round and you can get oranges year round, but I try and make a pause. I try to eat watermelons in the summer and oranges in the winter. And when we start having them at home, we stop and we say, okay, Shechianu is the beginning of the season.
Anyone say it on a birthday? Anyone?
Yeah. You do.
I think we're gonna do that as well. I like that idea.
Yeah.
Is that there's, with so much struggle in the world on a regular basis, like why not pause when there's a moment of celebration and acknowledge it? Just that it's an easy and meaningful way, I think, to stay positive, focused, and celebratory.
Legacy to give your kids. I love the Einstein piece. There are only two ways to live our lives. One is though nothing is a miracle, and the other is though everything is a miracle. We're going?
Yes,
Oh, I think I'm just watching our time here.
we have a few more minutes, we have 10 minutes, so if you wanna do the Shema.
I want to do the Shema. I'd love people to read it a few paragraphs at a time, if you could help us. And then we'll end with the video. We're on text 8, and this, I think this will lead us back. And we're following this, there's a video of a rabbi, actually a Rabbi Zarbi, who is hearing impaired. and how he understands the Shema. And I think since we started off with sort of looking at this through the life cycle, what you're going to hear obviously in this text is that the Shema is probably one of the first prayers that our children learn. And also it's supposed to be on our final prayer that we say as we pass from this world to the next. So I think it's sort of
Carolyn, I think that because of our tight schedule and because we would like to wrap up nicely, I think we should, I would ask you to lead the reading of the text in an abbreviated way and then jump to the video. Okay?
And I'm going to just read it myself. I'll do it as fast as I can. Is that okay? Okay. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. These words, commonly known as the Shema, are traditionally recited by Jews as we begin and conclude each day. We actually say it 3 times a day. Bookending not just our days, but our lives. The Shema is commonly the first prayer taught. And the mantra of, I'm going to skip ahead. The mantra of Judaism, its message foundational to what it means to live as a Jew of faith in this world. The Shema begins with an imperative. I'm in the second paragraph. Listen. Just that word alone is a powerful call. Listening is not an easy thing to do. More than the simple act of hearing, true listening requires us to open ourselves up to another's experience so that heart touches heart and we are changed. It is, in philosopher Martin Buber's framework, what allows us to develop an I-thou rather than an I-it relationship. Buber describes listening as something we do with our full selves by sensing and feeling what another is trying to convey, so that together we can remove the barrier between us. In Judaism, the act of listening is the key to unlocking bounty and blessing. In Deuteronomy, as the Israelites wound down their wandering, Moses instructs them emphatically using the same word, Shema. If you listen, truly listen, Moses says, all will be good, if not, verses will follow. Next paragraph. On this verse, the Hasidic commentator Sfat Emet says, happy is the one who listenings are to me. Adding his own commentary, he writes, listening means that one should always be prepared to receive and listen closely to the words of God. The voice of God's word is in everything, since we were all created by God's utterance. Back to what Sharon said. Each of us, no matter how seemingly different we are from one another, are created by God. The Shema calls on us not merely to listen, but to remember that despite our differences, there is one force of connection and transformation in the universe that animates and unites us all. The Lord our God, the Lord is one. First we call Adonai, other called by other names. Each of us have our own particular path, but ultimately they lead to the same place. Beginning with listening and ending with oneness, the Shema invites us to deepen our capacity to listen to ourselves, to the divine, and to those around us, to develop an I-thou relationship with the rest of humanity. Its daily recitation reminds us to build bridges rather than barriers, so that we may touch upon, even if only for brief moments at a time, that place in which we are all one.
Tell your daughter how much you love her with this beautiful gift. It says, to my daughter, never.
Okay, so this this piece is an interpretation of the Shema.
When I translate the Shema, I want to think about what each word of the prayer means. So the first word is Shema, which means listen or hear. But as a deaf person, I don't feel comfortable. It doesn't make sense to sign Shema as related to the ears. And the real meaning of the prayer, in my opinion, is to pay attention. So I sign Shema as pay attention. Shema. Second word, Yisrael. But this sign alone isn't enough, because this is the sign for Israel, the place. And the Shema is talking to Israel, the people. So I've added to Israel the gathering of all the people before me. Shema Yisrael. The third word is Adonai, which we understand, we interpret as God. And I've translated Adonai as God, an expansive perception of God. The next word is Eloheinu, our God. So since I just finished signing Adonai, I bring my hand down to my chest and sign ours, meaning Adonai Eloheinu. The next word is Adonai again. And the last word is Echad, which means one. Rather than just sign one, for a more spiritual interpretation, I like to show many and then change it into one. Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Beautiful, right? Beautiful.
Yeah.
The whole thing began mid-March. May 2020, I'm doing live shows.
I have no idea.
Okay, you just have to turn off that,
If I knew where it was, I
notification.
would. Go and take over. And I will,
The fella is the Jewish ambulance crew.
he's very funny if I can get him on.
That is, why is there a Jewish? Because nobody else will hold this up. Have you ever seen the trucks in
You
the?
can close that app, you can close that entire window.
There you go. Okay. Okay, we're back. Okay. So, comments on either the reading or the signing?
I have a request. I'd be interested in some of the other texts that you use when you do a full presentation. Do you think there's a chance that we could see some of, for those of us who'd be interested, just
Carolyn?
email those to us?
Okay, Sharon and I will certainly work on that. And certainly help.
Only with your permission, so you let me know, and,
Sure. Totally. Thank you. So let's just go back to what his point is, that Shema is not about hearing, but listening. How does that relate to what we've been talking about today?
I thought he was very powerful and spot on.
Mhm.
Agree.
Well, we need to listen and pay attention, as he said, to what everyone in our community can bring us, regardless of their different abilities or what they believe or what their background is. That is, I think, a very new to me interpretation of their prayer. I think that changing here to pay attention, I think that is gonna stick with me.
I think it improves, it shows that, what we say has several meanings. And if we want to convey the meanings in the sign language or in any other way, we have to make it inclusive not just to the word, but also to the idea. And it's a vehicle of accessibility, sign language, and the way this rabbi has used it to convey this particular blessing. And we always have to think of ways of improving our vehicles of accessibilities. And I'm not talking about our modified van, like what I have parked outside, but I'm talking about how to make things more accessible, not just in words, not just in like visual, but also the idea behind it, the proposition.
So, any other comments before we wrap up? I hope that everyone came away with some new insights. Everything that has to say about disability. Certainly we all came away knowing there's a lot more to do. The task is finished. but opened our hearts, our minds, and listened a little bit differently to each other. And obviously, we're already a very caring community, but as we said, there's always more to do. And thanks for sharing some of your personal thoughts. There were a lot of people shared very deep thoughts and personal things. Thank you very much. Thanks to Sharon for asking me to do this. Hadn't looked at it in a long time, and it was very meaningful as well. Revisit. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
so
so
much.
Thank you, Carolyn. It's been really a delight, as I knew it would be. So thank you. And I'll be in touch with you later today.
Wonderful. Okay. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Shavua tov.
Terrific session. Can we help clean up in any way?